Welcome to another season of X's and Omar. A new season brings new things for our show, and that includes a new set, a brand new website, and a new co-host, me, Matt Lincoln from WPEC in Palm Beach. Thank you so much, Omar. I appreciate you letting me come and be a part of this incredible production.
To the show as I am.
They didn't give me the pretty purple shirt, though. Joining me, of course, is Omar, the man you bother incessantly on Twitter. Omar Kelly, we have waited since late December for some real live professional football. Dolphins season kicking off against the Patriots.
Preseason wasn't good enough for
That
you?
was... Did you watch that fourth game? You were there.
That fourth game was brutal.
I fell asleep in the press box.
Hey, but you had to love Chris McCain showing out, and the fact that they finished that game 3-1 in the preseason. Don't forget that. Joe Philbin wants you to remember they're 3-1.
Well, we'll see what that means for the actual regular season. Once again this year, we're taking questions from our live chat and on Twitter. Tweet your questions to us by using hashtag XOmar. Let's get started. You ready?
Ready.
Okay. The Dolphins completed their 53-man roster on Sunday. Center Mike Pouncey, surprisingly on it as he recovers from that knee surgery.
I wouldn't say surprisingly. I said he was not going to be on PUP. Another media outlet said he was going to be on PUP. Luckily, I was right. That was a 50-50 guess.
So what does this mean for the Fins' offensive line?
From the standpoint, you're not going to lose Mike Pouncey for the first 6 games of the season. He's probably not going to be ready until maybe the London game against the Oakland Raiders. He's going to try to push it to try to come back probably a little bit earlier, maybe Kansas City. It really depends on when he practices. I think the first day he's actually practicing with his team gives you a 2-week countdown. So we got to continue to watch him and continue to see how much he does, how much he practices. And my guess is, the first day he practices, you got a 14-day countdown from when he's ready to play.
Do you feel like the Fins have solidified that center spot without him as they wait?
Sun Sentinel is a NFL starter. Unfortunately, he's the 32nd best center in the NFL, and that's a little bit. There's a little bit of wiggle room.
How many
there.
teams are in the NFL?
32.
Right. Okay.
But you know what? He is a good, decent starting center, an upgrade over Nate Garner. And if you remember last year, Nate Garner started some games at center. You won one, you lost one, you ran for 100 yards, you didn't run very well against the other game. I think Sun Sentinel isn't going to be the problem if he had to start the whole season. Now, the problem that you're going to have is he's going to face the best nose tackle in the NFL in Vince Wilfork. And Sun Sentinel got traded away from the Dolphins. He was a former second-round pick. They got traded away because he couldn't block Vince Wilfork. Both of them are older. Both of them are more experienced. But Vince is still better, the better player.
So when you do look at that 53-man roster, which of course we know is constantly changing, what are your thoughts on what Dennis Hickey has put together?
You know what? I wasn't a big fan of some of their moves in free agency. I'm not necessarily sure that Earl Mitchell is a nose tackle. We will see. I think he penetrates a lot better than Paul Soliai. You might get more production from a sack standpoint, but I'm not sure that they're going to be an asset. He's going to be an asset in run stopping. But there are other free agents that I really like in terms of what they bring. Cortland Finnegan. Cortland Finnegan is a very aggressive, very boisterous. Louis Delmas, same way, aggressive, very vocal. And the Dolphins, they banished all the players with personalities and who were leaders on the team last year. And they added new guys. So it's going to see if it's going to change the dynamic of the team. Now, in terms of the draft, the top 3 picks are very good players. Juwan James is going to be a decent starting right tackle in his rookie season. Jarvis Landry is the second coming of O.J. McDuffie. Really love him as a player. Billy Turner, when he gets finished with that turf toe issue, and turf toe is a very bad injury to have, I think he's going to be a starter for the Dolphins, if not year 1, year 2. I think he's a massive run-blocking asset. The rest of the draft is, not really. It
always is, right?
Yeah, but I will say this. They have 5 undrafted rookies. They have 6, really, because they claimed one in a cornerback. But 5 that have been on the team from the beginning of training camp, even OTAs. Chris McCain, Anthony Johnson, Damian Williams, Orleans Darkwa, Gator Haskins. All those guys can play. If they were the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round draft picks for this team, I would say A+ so far. But obviously, you can't evaluate a draft until 3 years in, but I love some of these players. Chris McCain is my favorite Dolphins player to watch, and that's on the entire team. Right. So it'll be interesting to see how he develops.
So in your opinion, Hickey has set up this team for success. He's done his job.
he's done his job, but I thought Jeff Ireland did his job last year. Jeff Ireland wasn't the reason that they had a goose egg against the Bills and crapped the bed in the second half against the Jets. Jeff Ireland wasn't the reason that this team didn't make the playoffs. Coaching was. Now, most of this team is still a Jeff Ireland team. The problem is, you know, you have to infuse that hickey talent into the team, and I like what I've seen so far. Now, will that amount to a winning season? To me, that's on coaching.
All right, we'll see how. Let's take some of the first tweet of the first show. It comes from mdog34. Who do you expect the biggest improvement from this year, and who will take a step back this year?
I expect the biggest improvement from Jimmy Wilson. He's going to have the position. He's been the nickel cornerback for the last 2 years. He's going to have the opportunity to push himself into a starting role as a free safety, which I think is the natural position for him. I think he's more of a strong safety, but free safety will do. Louis Delmas, he's so aggressive. He needs to be in that free safety position. He's playing because Rashad Jones is suspended for the first 4 games for PED use. And I've watched Jimmy since he was a rookie with the Dolphins. They call him Big Play Jimmy or Red Zone Jimmy for a reason. In practice and in some games, Jimmy makes plays. Now, Jimmy needs to learn how to tackle, but Jimmy makes plays. What people have to understand is the free safety role is a very complicated and difficult role to understand. You have to be the center fielder of your defense. You have to be the last line of defense. You can't be looking for the big hit. You have to make the short tackle, and Jimmy needs to grow into his role. Disappointment.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Shelley Smith will hold up as a starting offensive guard for the entire year. We'll see.
I think, for my money, I know we won't see him for the first 4 weeks. Like to see the improvement out of Dion Jordan. I think he could be the guy that we put at the end as the guy who is the most improved after Game 16.
Okay, I would say Dion Jordan probably is in my top 5 of guys who've been the most disappointing in training camp.
Okay.
I think he added 15 pounds of muscle. He lost his explosion. He does not have any pass rushing moves. Hopefully he uses this time in the 4 weeks that he's away from the team to go get with a pass rushing specialist. Chuck Smith is out there. He's in Atlanta. I've watched him work wonders with draft players in terms of helping them with their footwork, helping with their stance, helping them with their swim moves, chop blocks. And Dion Jordan needs pass rushing moves because once he's engaged and he's not going anywhere.
Okay.
And he's got to get better.
Okay. I know this is our first show together, and you're touching me already. I don't know how I feel about that. Well, there are 2 specific aspects of the team that are most concerning to you. We talked about this before, the linebacker situation, and if Ryan Tannehill can lead this team to 23 points per game. Last season, the Dolphins 6-1 when they hit that 23-point plateau. But let's hit that defense first. Dolphins throughout training camp move those linebackers around. Can this unit hold up?
I'm laughing because I don't have the answer, and I'm not necessarily optimistic from this standpoint. Linebackers were your number 1 problem last year. You knew it. You acknowledged it. You did nothing to fix it. All you did was play the shell game. You took the same 3 linebackers and the inside linebackers, and you went like this. Does that mean it's solving the problem? I'm not a big believer. Now, the question is, can Koamisi be a better inside linebacker? Can he navigate the defense and direct everybody, direct traffic, and be a leader? I hear that he has that in him. The question is, can these coaches pull it out of him? Koamisi has been an adequate NFL starter for 4 years. Now you're putting him in the most important position of your defense and expecting him to blossom and play better than adequate middle linebacker, I don't know.
So of those 3 starters, is there someone that you see that's going to be starting at the end of the season who's not those 3 guys?
Well, if Philip Wheeler's starting by the midseason point, I would be shocked. You've been trying to replace Philip Wheeler for forever. Jelani Jenkins isn't really the answer. He's on grace and mercy on the 53-man roster. You thought he would challenge Philip Wheeler. He hasn't. My sleeper is Chris McCain. As I said, he's my favorite player to watch. According to Pro Football Focus, who I do not refer to as the gospel, but they do follow every player. He was the most productive, effective outside linebacker in the NFL during the exhibition season. Chris McCain is what Dion Jordan was supposed to be. Now, the question is, why was he undrafted? You dig a little deeper, you find out there are other issues, that he's got to mature as a human being before you can sort of put all the pressure of becoming a starter on him. But I think if I wouldn't be shocked if Chris McCain is starting by the end of the season.
We were talking to him at training camp, and he told us his story, how he was kicked out of Cal, how he was applying for jobs at UPS and just hoping to get one of those jobs.
Flipping burgers. He had almost given up on himself and given up on football. Fortunately, he hadn't. This is a kid who struggled from an educational standpoint, and I've seen a lot of those. I used to cover the Hurricanes, and sometimes guys aren't meant for school, and sometimes school is a challenge. They just want to play ball. Well, Chris McCain now has the opportunity to just play ball, and you might see him blossom. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up the Rookie of the Year.
That would be something else. Well,
yeah.
Let's move on to the offensive side of the ball. It's year 3 in the Tannehill era. What will he have to do to get this offense to a point with the rebuild offensive line scoring 23 points a game?
You mentioned 23 points a game. As we said earlier in the show, the Dolphins were 6-1 last year when they scored 23 points. Tannehill has to get to the upper echelon of quarterbacks, top 15. That he has to become Andy Dalton. He has to become more efficient, protect the ball better. Obviously, everybody's going to harp on the big plays with Mike Wallace. I'm going to tell you, the big plays, I've seen them in training camp. I've seen them in exhibition season. Hopefully they transition to the games, but it's not just Mike Wallace. Charles Clay can deliver big plays. Rashard Matthews can deliver big plays. Brandon Gibson can deliver big plays. Brian Hartline. I've seen big plays from Brian Hartline in exhibition season that they haven't shown you yet. It's there. So if you sleep on Brian Hartline, he's going to catch you sleeping. So you have to continue to invest and develop the playmakers around him, the offensive line. He's got to get better with his pocket presence. To me, the recipe for success for Ryan Tannehill last year was he needed to check down the ball more. Well, this offense forces him to check down the ball more. He needs to get better pocket presence. Well, this offense, quick rhythm spread offense, the ball is out his hand at the end of his 3-step, 5-step, or 7-step drop. So you're going to have less sacks, and he needs to deliver the long ball. I've seen it. Hopefully you see it in the regular season.
And we'll see how much of a weapon Noshawn Moreno is for this offense, too.
Yeah, they got to run the ball.
Sure. Let's take a tweet. This one comes from Danger Wildman 24. Do the Dolphins have a legitimate top 10 defense, even with the questions at LB?
I'm not comfortable saying they have a top 10 defense. I think they have a top 5 defensive line.
Yeah.
I think they have a top 5 secondary. I mean, keep in mind, this is the same secondary that allowed 4 touchdowns to receivers last year. Right. 4. In 16 games, 4. And they got better because they added Cortland Finnegan, who replaced Demetri Patterson. They've got Will Davis, who is a ball hawk, who's replacing Nolan Carroll. They've replaced Chris Clemens with Louis Delmas. This secondary should be good. So if I give you a top 5 defensive line and a top 5 secondary, you should be top 10 defense.
Right.
However, I'm giving you a bottom 5 linebacking unit, so that sort of brings it down.
Did that top 5 defensive line act like a top 5 defensive line last year?
In instances they did.
Okay.
I think the defensive line sets the table for the linebackers.
Right.
If I set you a table full of food and you don't eat, sometimes you're gonna starve.
Right. Let's take another tweet. This one's from Gavin Richards. How do you feel about the tight end depth? If Charles Clay goes down, are we in trouble?
You know what? I would say, if I had to list the players that I've seen the most growth from, it would be Ryan Tannehill, number 1, tremendous growth. I've seen pocket presence. I've seen efficiency. He's good on third downs, which he's always been. He's good in the red zone in practice, not Dallas game. He's always been good in the red zone. I'm seeing deep ball, so he's the number 1. But the number 2 most improved player that I've seen from training camp to right now is Deion Sims, who was drafted as an inline blocker. Well, right now I'm telling you, as a blocker, he is a beast, a man. And that helps you from the standpoint you have a little bit more flexibility. And if Jawan James needs some help out there to block the Mario Williams of the world, Deion Sims can get the job done. So tight end depth-wise, after the top 2, I would say a little bit murky, but I like the top 2 tight ends. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins in week 2, when contracts aren't guaranteed, go out and sign a guy like DJ Williams. Look out for that.
And Sims also the guy who can catch the ball a little bit. Wouldn't be surprised
Just a little bit.
If we see a little goal line at the 1, play action, dump off, and there he is wide open.
Just a little bit.
Just a little
He's
bit.
not the greatest, as you saw in the fumble in Dallas. He's not the greatest pass catcher, but he's ready to step up and contribute
We've
more.
seen worse. Patriots are coming to town. The beasts of the AFC East. with healthy Rob Gronkowski and the addition of Pro Bowl cornerback Darrelle Revis. However, last week the Patriots traded All-Pro guard Logan Mankins. How does that affect New England?
Randy Starks wanted to send Bill Belichick a gift.
Yeah, right.
Logan Mankins has been a nightmare for the Dolphins for the past, 5-6 years. He's a Pro Bowl guard. Obviously, he wasn't the player that he once was, but is he still going to be good for a year or two? Absolutely. But this is the Patriots being the Patriots. They get rid of good players for draft picks at the right time. It's going to hurt them. From their offensive line standpoint, Josh Klein is going to be starting right now as a left guard spot, and he's not very stout. And the question is, do you have any answers? If I'm the Dolphins, I'm blitzing him. I'm fire blitzing him all game long, have him struggle early, get in his head. And the best way to attack Brady is pressure up the middle.
Right.
So now you've just weakened your middle. You've played into the Dolphins' strengths where Earl Mitchell is a pass rusher, Jared Odrick is a pass rusher, Randy Starks is a pass rusher, Ellerbe and Wheeler can blitz. Wheeler, he can't cover, but he can blitz. That's what he did at Georgia Tech. So it plays into their strengths. Now, from a defensive standpoint, the Patriots got better.
Yeah.
When you add Darrelle Revis to your team, now your defense, you're basically, he's locked down one receiver, whether it be Mike Wallace or Brian Hartline, and the rest of the defense, the other 10 players, they're playing. It's like isolation basketball. Revis is over there doing his thing, right, and everybody else is playing the team game. So you've just handicapped yourself. You've just handicapped the offense. Now the question is, can their pass rush get enough pressure? And I'm not a huge Rob Ninkovich fan, but Chandler Jones on the other side, he's a man. And it'll be interesting to see. But their linebackers, they can be exposed and attacked. So I'll be interested to see if that's how the Dolphins attack the Patriots.
And you got to think, it's got to be 23 points. It's going to be probably more than that to be able to beat the Patriots.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, if you look at last year, it was a shootout in the fourth quarter. If you're the Dolphins, you want to run the ball, shorten the game, time of possession. You can't lose special teams. That's going to be interesting to see with Caleb Sturgis. And you got to run the ball and shorten the game in the fourth quarter. Obviously, Brady's going to have his opportunities, but your defense has to step up and play well.
All right, sounds good. Let's take another tweet. This one is from Daniel Circio. Will the new zone running scheme neutralize New England's ability to put Will Fork in Miami's running lanes?
That's an interesting question. Since I've been covering the NFL, I've really come to the conclusion that Bill Belichick exposes what your weaknesses are. So whoever he lines up Vince Wilfork opposite, and sometimes it'll be a tackle, sometimes it'll be a guard, sometimes he'll put Vince Wilfork as an end. Whoever he lines Vince Wilfork up is your weakest link on your offensive line. Whatever he takes away, like last year in the second game, he took away Charles Clay by putting Aqib Talib on him. If you take away Charles Clay from Ryan Tannehill and force him to beat you with everybody else, that plays into his weaknesses. So whatever Bill Belichick does, I call it what would Bill Belichick do, is basically the blueprint for how you beat the Dolphins. And it'll be interesting to see what they do. Now, in terms of Wilfork, you're just going to take an L. Right. You just have to figure out a way to get past it. If you think you're going to run a draw play at Vince Wilfork and move him out of his spot, it's not going to happen. So you better figure out how to attack the edges.
So will these improvements on defense and Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski back, how much better are the Patriots this year? Is this a scary proposition for the Dolphins and the rest of the AFC East?
I don't think the Patriots are as good as they were last year. If you look at them from a weapons standpoint, Danny Amendola, he's 5 minutes away from a concussion. Julian Edelman, Julian Edelman wouldn't even be starting for the Dolphins. He'd probably be the fourth best receiver. Rob Gronkowski, you're going to put him on the field 9 months into an ACL rehab and pretend like he's a Pro Bowler on one leg. That's not going to happen. And the running game, they lost Blunt. And who was that guy they gave the ball to in the fourth quarter when they just needed to pound you and finish off the game? Well, who's finishing off the game right now? Is it going to be Stephen Ridley, Shane Vereen, James White?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be interesting.
But one thing about the Patriots is they will always evolve.
Right. Bill Belichick always does seem to figure it out. Let's take another question. This one comes from Logan Brandon. How will the Patriots cover Charles Clay?
Good question. I'm not sure because the Dolphins will move Charles Clay so much move him around, it's going to be hard to figure out how to isolate Charles Clay. I would think they'd be crazy to put Revis on him like they did with Aqib Talib, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that Aqib Talib had some hip issues or some injury issues and couldn't really hang with the receiver. Well, one-on-one, he could shut down Charles Clay. So that, to me, is where the Patriots are going to – that's really the question. Who is Revis going to cover? Is he going to cover Hartline or is he going to cover Wallace? If you do study the history of Darrelle Revis' career, and I'm not using the Tampa Bay game where he shut down Mike Wallace as an example, but in the history of Darrelle Revis' career, he struggles against speedy receiver, the Ted Gins of the world. That's where he really needs to so I would put him against Brian Hartline,
right.
Have him one-on-one against Brian Hartline, and have a cornerback and a safety cloud Mike Wallace and take him out of the game. So now you take away Mike Wallace with a cloud, you take away Brian Hartline with Revis one-on-one, that forces Ryan Tannehill to beat you with Charles Clay, Rashard Matthews, and Jarvis Landry and Brandon Gibson.
I know Joe Philbin has said over and over again during the preseason that we are throwing our full offense out there. We are showing these teams everything we've got. We're not holding anything back. But how much do you think of this laser offense we really haven't seen yet?
That first drive against Atlanta was the laser offense. Okay. After that, you see their foundations of it. You see the formations. You see the motions. But the base of the laser offense has not really been shown. And they have some things in the red zone that is pretty good. So I like the offense. I'm encouraged by what I've seen from Bill Lazor. I like his approach. I like the fact that he's commanding and demanding. I like the motions. I like the fact that they attack edges. I like the fact that there's big play strikes. So we just got to see it on the field.
Mm-hmm. All right, it's prediction time. I hear you have quite an impressive run of predicting Dolphins games. Went pretty well for you last year, right?
Yeah. You know what? I think I might have missed 2-3 games. I'm not necessarily sure. It's just a matter of understanding where the matchups are. And right now, the favorable matchup for the Dolphins are Charles Clay versus these linebackers. Mm-hmm. The favorable matchup for the Dolphins are Noshawn Moreno. He ran for over 200 yards against the Patriots the last time he faced them. Now, that was without Vince Wilfork.
Right.
So, really none of these receivers scare me. I'm not concerned about Rob Gronkowski 9 months into a rehab. Am I concerned about which linebacker is going to be able to cover him? Absolutely. But, it is what it is. You got to attack Bill Belichick. You got to attack Bill Belichick by keeping him guessing, and you got to attack Tom Brady by attacking the middle of the field. Now, you can't blitz him. Mm-hmm. Blitzing Tom Brady is crazy. You just got to attack him with your front four, rush, get penetration from inside, make him uncomfortable. And if you have the lead and you make the Patriots put them in a pass mode, guys like Cameron Wake and Olivier Vernon can pin their ears back and go after him. And if you do not have that kind of approach and you do not have the lead, it's going to be a tough day for you because Patriots can score 30 points like this. So I am predicting, first, let me get to the season prediction. Okay. And I want your season prediction.
Okay.
I think this is a 9-7 Dolphin team from this standpoint, and I will make this argument. Last year, the Dolphins were 8-8, gift wrapping 4 victories away. Bills, Baltimore, Tampa, and Carolina. They had fourth quarter leads in those games, could not run the ball. And when they had a deficit, they couldn't rally the team back and get what I call the kill. So you were 8-8 last year, gift wrapping 4 victories, being in the middle of a national scandal in terms of the bully saga that was inside the Dolphins locker room for 6 weeks. You were there.
Right.
And you were in position to earn a playoff spot in the final 2 games, but laid a goose egg against the Bills and got beat up by the Jets in your home turf. So
we all remember those games.
You were 8-8, giving away games, 8-8, with a national saga that could have absolutely destroyed your team and botched your opportunity to make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. I say that this is an improved team, better offense, better offensive line, better running back, better quarterback. From a defensive standpoint, you've got a better secondary.
Right.
You should be a 9-7 team. Now, if you're not 9-7, drastic injuries, you're horrible at turnovers, and Joe Philbin probably did a bad job. Mm-hmm. But what are your expectations?
Are we sure this offensive line is considered better? Okay.
You've got 3 first-round picks on an offensive line when Mike Pouncey gets back. Juwan James, your left tackle, Pro Bowler, Juwan James, Pro Bowler Mike Pouncey, your center, first-round pick, 2011. Juwan James, first-round pick, 46-game starter at University of Tennessee, 2014. Mm-hmm. All you got to do is figure out the guard situation. 3 first-round picks, 2 Pro Bowlers, figure out the guard situation.
Mm-hmm. I think that they need to prove that they are better than the Bills and the Jets. That's the first thing.
Absolutely.
They've got to win probably those 4 games.
You can't let the Bills sweep you again.
You can't let that happen. And from what we've seen, and everything that you've said, I agree with. It's all the question mark of how really good is Ryan Tannehill? Does Ryan Tannehill make that step up? And is the rest of the team good enough to make this a playoff team? I don't know. I mean, 9-7, I'll buy that. I think that's somewhere around there, 8-8, 9-7. But they've got to be mentally strong and tough. And I know you've written a lot about who are the leaders on this team.
I still can't tell you.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
Because it's not Tannehill.
No, he's trying. They're trying. They're trying to say, and I spoke to Mike Wallace yesterday about it. And he said they're having leadership council meetings. And everybody in those meetings have said, Mike, you are our leader.
Right.
You step up. We follow your lead. And that's a big step for them to get to that point, to the point where everybody on the team says, you're our leader.
Mm-hmm.
We'll only go as far as you take us. You set the tone. He's the last guy in the building, first guy in the building, last guy out. I see growth and development. And as I say to people, if Bill Lazor can turn Nick Foles into the top-rated passer, the number 1 guy, why can't he do it with Ryan Tannehill, who is a better quarterback? We'll see.
I'll buy that. So, interestingly enough, this is a really tough task to start the season off. If they can win this game, they're certainly on a good road. So do they win this game?
No. I think the Patriots just have too much firepower, too much mojo. People will say, oh, it's a 1 o'clock game in Sun Life Stadium. The last 2 times the Patriots have played here, it was the Dolphins who were cramping up, not the Patriots, just for the record. The Patriots run such a fast-paced, high-octane offense. Cramping won't matter to them, and they sub so much. So I'm predicting a 23-20 Dolphins loss. But as I say, Patriots will expose your weaknesses. You got to spend the next 15 weeks figuring out how to fix them.
Thank you so much for being
Your
a part
prediction.
of the tweet.
Hey.
Oh, the Dolphins are going to lose by 14 this weekend. I don't like it, but
14.
Don't like them this weekend. However, 9 wins are still out there. We've got a lot of talk both on the website and online.
We've got a 1st and 10 with my favorite Dolphins player right now, Chris McCain, undrafted player from the University of California, had some tough struggles, but very interesting 1st and 10. If you're not familiar with the 1st and 10, you should check it out.
Very much so. Thank you so much for being a part of X's and Omar. We're going to do this every Wednesday, so join us at 12:15 right here. And if you missed any of it, it will be archived right here on the sunsentinel.com/XOmar. Thanks for joining us.